What's up YouTube? In this video I'm going to be installing this direct port methanol injection kit I got from SpeedTech Motorsports on this R56 Mini Cooper S. I'm going to be using this spacer that I also got from SpeedTech Motorsports for the actual nozzles. These are what nozzles look like. So if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and stick around. You're going to want to watch this whole video. No matter which Mini Cooper you drive, check out my Facebook group. It's called Mini Cooper DIY. I'll leave a link to that in the description, or you can just go to Facebook and type Mini Cooper DIY in the search bar and you can find it that way. Let's get to the video. In order to do this job, you're going to have to remove your intake manifold. I have a detailed instructional video on how to remove your intake manifold and put it back on. I'll link to that in the description. I just want to keep this video as short as possible, so I didn't want to remove it in the video since I already have a video. So yeah, go watch that video if you don't already know how to do it. It's real easy, but let's get to this part. Okay, so once you have your intake manifold at least unbolted, you're gonna need to figure out where you're gonna put your actual injection kit so it's not hitting your intake system. Because as you see, everything's open. It looks like I can bolt it anywhere, but I can't. If I bolt it right here and I run my stock airbox is gonna hit this. If you're not running a stock airbox, you can pretty much bolt it anywhere on the firewall. Just make sure it doesn't hit your intake. Okay, so the way that I've found out where I can put my kit is I just go ahead and put your spacer on your stock studs. You don't need to take them out yet. You're gonna have to take them out eventually, but not right now. Put your spacer on your stock studs, and then just put your intake manifold, just set it on over top of it and see where your direct port's gonna fit without it hitting the manifold. And if you're running the stock airbox, put the stock airbox on where it's gonna go and make sure the spacer's not gonna hit, or not the spacer, but the direct port kit isn't gonna hit the airbox, because you obviously don't want it to be rattling when you're driving, because that would be really annoying. But I've already done that and I figured out where I'm gonna put mine is going to be right here. And right here it's going to be underneath. It's not going to be obstructed by my intake manifold, and my stock airbox will actually hide it. So if I have to pop my hood for any reason, you won't be able to see this. Okay, once you've figured out where exactly you want to mount this, take this bracket off to the bottom and get some self-tapping screws. And you're gonna tap this into place where you just figured out that this is gonna fit without hitting your intake manifold. Okay, for me, I know that this first hole where I'm putting this first screw on the passenger side of the car is gonna line up perfectly with this bolt that's down here, and I'm just gonna put it as low as I can. So that's how I'm gonna line it up while I tap it. I'm just going to barely tighten that in there, and then I'm going to test fit it before I tap the other screw. So I can see, because I know based off of where this hard line is, where I need to be to not hit my intake manifold, I know that where I'm at right now is the perfect spot. I have plenty of clearance, and I'm happy with this spot, so I'm going to go ahead and screw it in the rest of the way. I should clarify, I'm not tightening these. It's still pretty loose because I don't want to strip this plastic out, because I have to take it back apart again in order, because I obviously haven't installed the direct port portion on it yet. So I'll do that after I get the hole tapped. To give you an idea of where I'm putting mine, this is that first hole I drilled, and this is the bolt that I was talking about it being centered with. It's directly centered with that, and then it's down pretty much as low as you can get it. And if you do that, it won't hit this hard line, and you'll clear your intake manifold even with the spacer on. And then the second hole, obviously, is just for the other side. Now these two screws, you're going to want to tighten them with a screwdriver and not a power tool, because you're going into plastic, and you don't want to over tighten these, because I mean, you'll be drilling holes all day if you strip these out. Okay, so now that I have it in, I'll just go ahead and I just set my intake manifold in here. As you can see, I have the spacer, There's no bolts holding it. Well, I have just the stock studs. And there's plenty of room. Nothing's hitting. Once I put my air box on, you won't be able to see that direct port kit. If you're running the aftermarket intake, you'll totally see the import or the direct port kit. Okay, you're gonna have to pull these studs out, so it's a good idea to spray some sort of lubricating agent on there. I'm just gonna use WD-40. I actually sprayed some on here. I had my intake manifold off last weekend, so I sprayed some on here while I was at it, but I'm gonna do it again. Okay, once you're ready to pull these studs out, what you're going to need is an E7. It's like a reverse Torx bit. And just put it on the end of it. Mine actually just came out real easy. I just loosened the first one. Yeah, they're all, at least the first two are coming out easy. If one is stuck, I'll show you how to unstick it. All right, well, none of them are stuck. Mine all came out real easy. But if they don't come out real easy, what you do is you just put your wrench on there, put enough pressure on it to where you feel like it should come out, and just hold it for a second, and that's going to allow, it's going to give it a little bit of stretch, and it's going to allow the WD-40 or whatever you use to work its way in there. And then switch your ratchet around to where you're tightening it, and do the same thing the other way, and just do that repeatedly until you feel it give in either direction. It doesn't matter. And then go ahead and slowly take the bolt out. That'll give you a less chance of breaking the bolt. It's not foolproof. Okay, once you pull all these out, we're gonna go to the next step. And we gotta get this wiring loom out of the way, because where it sits now, when you put the new injectors and the direct port methanol injectors in, they'll actually hit it. So you have to take it off of the fuel rail and just attach it on the bottom. I'm gonna show you how to do that right now. Okay, so you have this wiring loom that's mounted to your fuel rail, and it's got these zip tie things that attach to these holes. And if you pull up on it, it actually comes out. And there's another one right here. I don't know if that's gonna come out as easy. Okay, so that one didn't just pop out as easy as the other one, so I'm just gonna take a screwdriver, I'm gonna put it underneath, and I'm just gonna pry it, because it's just a connector that pops out. But be careful, you're not trying to break anything. Then what I'm gonna do is I flip these over, and I'm just gonna attempt anyway to install it upside down so it's underneath the rail. And I'm hoping, I haven't test fit this yet, but I'm hoping that's enough clearance to get it out of the way. Make sure that's not gonna fall off. If you're not, if you're worried about it, maybe throw a zip tie on there, but I think mine are good. And as you can see, it's just a test fit. I'm just holding it on there. There's no bolts, but the injector is totally clear. They're not even tight, so they'll be up higher once they are tight, and they might not be orientated in that direction, but they're not hitting anything. Okay, before we start installing the manifold and all that stuff, we want to get this wiring done just so we have room to do it without the intake manifold in the way. This blue wire right here is your power wire. It's going to go to the wire that powers your pump. So it's the wire that gets power when your pump is spraying. You don't want this to get power at any other time than when your pump is spraying. Okay, so since I already have, I don't know how your kit is set up, but the way mine is, my pump is in the trunk. So I have all my wiring inside the car. So I just ran right where my methanol line comes out, my vacuum line. I just ran a blue wire. It's I believe it's 16 gauge. It is 16 gauge. Through this hole, brought it up over the topper right here, and I'm going through where my cabin air filter is. And then I already have a hole drilled from where all these where the methanol line and the vacuum line come through, and I'm going to bring the wire in that way in order to power it from the pump. But the ground line, this black wire right here, I'm just going to ground it right here. I point at it right there to the ground strap, because I mean it's a ground strap, so it's definitely a ground, and that's all it needs. It doesn't have to ground anything specific. So from inside my car, I have this black wire loom stuff that has, let's see if I can get it open here, has all my wires in it, and also has my methanol line running in it. And I just got to tap the one that goes to the pump. Okay, so right here I found where my one wire coming from my pump, and then it splits. One of them is for my light that just tells me that it's spraying, and the other one is going to the controller. I'm gonna run that line into this. There's just a boot connector right here that I have wrapped up. I'm gonna unwrap it, take the butt connector off, and put another one on and reconnect the blue line, just same way these two red ones are connected. Okay, so after I got that wire connected down there, it still ran through here. I cut it off, I connected it to this blue wire like I said, and I just pulled the butt connection inside that hole just so you can't see it, so it'll be a cleaner install once it's done. That's not necessary. Okay, so I went ahead and ran my ground wire. It doesn't look that good, but I'll change it later. That's the only connector I had to the bottom of my ground strap. Okay, so now I'm gonna start getting ready to run these lines and get everything set up. But just remember, you're gonna have to put that E6000 adhesive in these fittings once you're done. So this video is gonna cover how to set everything up. But after you've done everything I've done in this video, you're gonna have to go back and seal these, because I'm not gonna seal these until after I test everything and make sure it works. And once it's working, then I'll go back. I have to do my whole system. I haven't done the snow performance setup yet either, but I'm gonna go through and do the whole thing in one day, and then let it sit for, it says to sit for 24 to 72 hours. I'm gonna let mine sit for 72 hours before I run anything through it. This is what E6000 looks like. You don't need this much, obviously. The box I bought actually had 4 of these. I thought I was getting a lot less, and I just thought it was really expensive. So that's what I get for not paying attention. But I'll put a link in the description to where you can get a much smaller package of this, and pretty much it'll be all you need. Okay, so next up, you're going to want to take your line, the one that you already had ran to your main nozzle, cut it, but make sure you're cutting it where it's long enough to where it's going to reach this. This is the inlet on the bottom. I'm going to use both hands to put it in. Then the one that goes over here is the one that goes to your nozzle. And this right here is actually a check valve, so you won't need any check valve after you install this. Like the one that I have in the back, if you watched my other video, I no longer need after install this, because I have a check valve right here. But you'll still need a solenoid if your pump and tank is mounted in the trunk like mine is. Okay, so now what I did is I just hand tightened 2 of these studs just barely in there so that they were sticking out kind of far. So I can put this spacer on here just enough to where I can see where I want to put my nozzles. This is all going to depend on how you mount your system. If your system is mounted the same place as mine, that's what my nozzles look like. And the reason I have it like that is because I'm going to run these hoses through the center of my intake manifold. Right here. So when that's in the engine bay like that, they're all going to come through the middle right here and attach to the kit right here. And for me to do that, I just went through and I measured. I went with the furthest one, and 1 foot works, which is good because I plan on switching to steel braided someday, and steel braided lines come in 1 foot or 2 feet, and I didn't want it by 2 feet. Okay, so once you've figured out what your length is, I personally would cut these equal length so that when the solenoid on your direct port kit opens and it starts spraying, it hits all your cylinders at roughly the same time. If you have all different lengths, it's going to be a little bit different. I don't know if it's going to matter. Probably wouldn't matter that much, but why not do equal length? That's what I did. I did equal length. I just went with whatever one was going to be the longest and made them all that size. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and pull these 2 studs out that I just used to get my lengths. And then I'm going to get this intake manifold on. I'll show you how I'm about to do that. Okay, so pre-putting your intake manifold on, you're going to want to connect all these to your fittings. And these are push connect fittings that come with it. So you're just gonna press them in all the way, and they lock in, and they rotate whichever direction you want them to be. I'm pushing those in all the way. Like I said, I am planning on switching to steel braided eventually. So at this point, if you're not going to switch, if you're going to stick with the fittings that came with it, I would go ahead and seal these fittings with that E6000, just so you don't have to pull your intake manifold off, because you can't really see if these are leaking, and they're going to, so you might as well go ahead and seal them now. But since I'm going to be pulling this off again anyway, I'm going to go ahead and not seal it. Okay, now remember your kit comes with these grommets, or they're gaskets. You're going to go ahead and press them into these grooves. They fit in there really good. This is like a lot easier than I was worried they were going to fall off when you went to put your spacer in, but they stay on just as good as the intake manifold ones. So just make sure you press those in all the way, so when you tighten it down, nothing moves. And do that on all four. Once you're done, they'll all look like that. It actually looks pretty nice. I'm pretty happy with it. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the put the intake manifold on. Okay, so I just went ahead and set the spacer on top of the manifold so it locks into place. And then I put the lines through the middle hole. And now I'm going to go ahead and hold on to this spacer as I lower the manifold into place, and have your bolts ready with washers on them so that you're not fumbling around. Now remember, there's a bunch of stuff you have to connect under here while you're doing this, and you have to hold on to this spacer at the same time, so it's not going to be that easy. Just make sure when you're doing this that you have all of your sensors where they're supposed to go. Make sure they're plugged in. Make sure you can get to your map sensor. Gotta find one. Okay, I went and tucked my map sensor plug in right there, so I know that I won't have any trouble getting that once I get all this in. I'm going to start getting the stuff that's on the bottom first, just so that because I know that once I plug this thing in that's over on the right, I won't have any room to maneuver. So let me find that plug. Oh, get on. There we go. Okay, one more sensor to plug in right here. All right, I think I have that sensor on. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and try to get one bolt in holding the intake manifold. Not really worried about which bolt I get. I'm just going to try to get one. Alright, I got one bolt in right there. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get this last connection. It's just this, I think some sort of vacuum hose. It's the one that connects like this one, but is underneath the manifold. Alright, then once you have that connected, I'm going to go ahead and hand tighten these bolts. I'm obviously not going to get them in very far, because I don't want to torque it down wrong. But go ahead and just hand tighten all those, and then we'll worry about these. Alright, so it turns out one of them wasn't long enough, so I cut another one. It's still 1 foot. I'm just not going to go through the middle. I'm going to come around the outside on the furthest one over here. So good thing I didn't use any adhesive. But yeah, so I'm going to come around this way and connect it right here. And I turned the nozzle so it's facing out this way. But at this point, now you can go ahead and connect all your hoses. Okay, once you get your lines ran, get your map sensor plugged in. So now you can go ahead and put your intake on, whichever intake you're running. If you're running the stock one, it's going to be a little bit difficult, but it should be doable. Okay, if you're running the stock airbox, it's only if you're in, or any airbox that connects to your intake manifold. Since you're running a spacer that pushes your intake manifold back, you now have to put a spacer on your mass airflow sensor to move it the same distance. So I got this, it's called a Wombat. I got it from Craven Speed. I'll put a link to this in the description. And all you do, I'll show you real quick. You just take out these two screws, one on each side, and pull that out, put this in, replace those screws with the two longer ones that come with the Wombat, put it back together, and put your intake hose back on. Okay, let's go ahead and take these two Torx bits out, Torx screws out. Okay, so I accidentally popped that on with the camera off, but I took this off of the mass airflow sensor first. I'm going to go ahead and put it in here. No, I'm not. Go ahead and tighten that down. I'll strip the plastic, obviously. Now, I didn't see anywhere in the instructions where it said to reinstall this, so I didn't. But if I get a code, then I'll check again, I guess. But as of right now, I'm not going to install it. So the rest of the install is going to depend on your car, on what you have, what mods you have. So mine's going to be different than yours. But, you know, put it back together at this point. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like this video, give it a thumbs down. And I'll catch you in the next video.